Welcome, this is Najma Minhas, editor, Global Village Space. I have with me Mr. Hassan Aslam Shah, who is a legal expert and has written extensively on international lawfare. Hassan, thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure, Najma.
Hassan, I'd like to start off by you explaining to us what is the significance of this event happening, Pakistan's political map being issued yesterday the way it was?
Yeah, thank you, Najma. Let me take you back to the political dimensions of this move by Pakistan before I get into the legal discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the last 1 year or so, narratives coming from India and Pakistan. India is, on way to becoming a Hindutva fascist country that is demonizing Muslims. It's maltreating them. We are seeing what's happening today in Ayodhya, where we are seeing the foundation being laid for the Hindu Rashtra, which we've been talking about for the last 1 year or so. Pakistan, on the other hand, has been, if I may use the term, slaying its demons. It's been moving away from the past. It's becoming a more inclusive, more pluralist society in which people of different religions are accepted. So this is the sort of the political,
the opening of Kartarpur corridor, for example.
Absolutely, that was again, another move by Imran Khan, to make Pakistan a more inclusive country. Now, what has happened in the last 1 year is that Pakistan has, seen what happened on the 5th of August 2019, exactly a year ago, when Pakistan was left, basically stunned by India's move of abrogating Article 370 of its constitution. Now, that was, something that shook us from our, 70 years of slumber. We basically realized that, we had been sitting idle. We did not have a cohesive narrative that we could sell to the world. And India caught us off guard. It basically, had been, making us, go on wild goose chases. We were, not able to sell the narrative, and since the last 1 year or so we have started realizing that we have to take this war of narratives to India, and this is what we've done
aggressively. So you see
in the last 1 year.
The map as part of taking the war of narratives towards India and to the international community.
Oh, absolutely, Najma, because you see, in the last 1 year, Pakistan has, flagged the Indian aggression and intransigence in Kashmir at the global level. Pakistan has been more vocal in opposing what has been happening to the Kashmiris. And the timing of this cartographic masterstroke, I would call, could not have been better. What Pakistan has done, and let me run you through the key takeaways of this move by Pakistan. First, Pakistan has labeled the entire Jammu and Kashmir as disputed territory. Now, that's significant because if Pakistan had included Azad Jammu and Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan as part of its own territory in the new political map, then Pakistan would not be seen to be coming to the world with what I call clean hands. It's very important for Pakistan to be seen by the world community as coming with clean hands. And Pakistan has also not done what India was claiming yesterday, that Pakistan is showing the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, as we call it now, as part of its own territory. Pakistan has not done that.
You're saying that, but the Himachal border, which is now Pakistan has defined it as a specific border with India. Doesn't that in essence do that? Why are you saying it hasn't done that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question once again, Najma?
So what happened on the side of Kashmir is that Pakistan has extended its international boundary and showed that the whole of Himachal border with Kashmir as an international border.
So I think Pakistan has done the right thing, and what Pakistan has also done, most importantly, is that if you look at the disputed border between India and China, Pakistan is labeled that as frontier undefined. That's again very important because that has been China's position also since the abrogation of Article 370, when China made a statement saying that China does not accept this move. So in a way, Pakistan has played a master stroke in terms of policy making by making China formally a part of its political discourse. And this is most significant because this move will sort of, sandwich India in between China and Pakistan. So this is a very, very important move in my
So
view by
India
Pakistan.
has strongly protested, and the Ministry of External Affairs has issued a statement saying that this is an exercise in political absurdity. And at the same time, they've questioned its legal validity. Now, when they question the legal validity, I'd really like you to address that particular point. Is what Pakistan doing legal?
It absolutely is, Najma, because Pakistan's political map is in line with the United Nations Security Council resolutions that have defined Jammu and Kashmir as an international dispute. So Pakistan, as I mentioned earlier, has not shown either Gilgit-Baltistan or Azad Jammu and Kashmir as part of its own territory. It's labeled it as as a disputed region. So this is 100% in line with the United Nations Security Council resolutions. What India has done, on the other hand, since last year, is it has moved in complete defiance of the United Nations Security Council resolutions. So what Pakistan has done is politically and legally correct, and something that should benefit Pakistan's position on Kashmir in the future as well.
Do you think Pakistan did this too late? Because we know that India changed its map last year, and then Nepal changed its map in reaction to what India had done, where India had incorporated Nepalese territory within its own map. Nepal changed the map. They got it approved by their assembly, and they put it into all their school books. Now we're seeing Pakistan do the same thing. Is Pakistan a bit late in the game, or you think this is fine that they did it at this point, and it still makes the same point still is made?
Well, Najma, we have been late in a number of things in the past, and that is because nobody had the vision or the foresight that we do today. But again, it's never too late. And if India had included Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Jammu and Kashmir as part of its own territory in its own map, that was in defiance of the United Nations Security Council resolutions, and it was a cartographic aggression by India. So that could not have been justified. And what Pakistan has done instead is to move completely in line with its international obligations and to show the entire region as disputed. Regarding the cartographic changes that are happening in the subcontinent, more specifically between Nepal and India, that we saw happen recently, and as you rightly mentioned, they've been showing parts of Indian territory as included in the Nepalese territory. Now, all this will eventually lead to countries taking these matters either to the United Nations Security Council or even this could even lead to bitter disputes between these countries. So again, all these changes that are happening in the region will have ramifications one way or the other.
Are these part of what we all talk about as lawfare? I mean, is this international lawfare that's taking place here?
Yes, Najma. For the viewers, lawfare is, to put it simply, the use of law as a weapon of war. Mm-hmm. So when Pakistan and India fought the case over Kulbhushan Jadhav at the International Court of Justice, that was part of lawfare. The next logical step in Pakistan's lawfare against India, in my humble view, would be that Pakistan should garner support of of countries that are sympathetic to Pakistan's position on Kashmir, and to build its narrative further, to then take this matter up at the United Nations General Assembly, and to hopefully get a resolution passed by the United Nations General Assembly to refer this matter to the International Court of Justice for an advisory opinion. Now, the reason why I say Pakistan should go down the route of the United Nations General Assembly is because although Pakistan and India are parties to a number of international conventions and treaties, such as the Genocide Convention, India has made certain reservations and declarations which basically excludes the jurisdiction of the International Court of Justice. So Pakistan can't simply go to the International Court of Justice and file an application against India for human rights violations and other violations that are happening in Kashmir. The route that Pakistan can take is to take this matter up at the United Nations General Assembly, flag the Indian atrocities that are being committed in Kashmir for the last 72 years, and then get an appropriate question framed by the United Nations General Assembly on Kashmir, which could include the right of self-determination of the Kashmiris, which could include Pakistan's claims over Kashmir, over the territory, and then refer the matter to the International Court of Justice for issuing what is known as an advisory opinion. Now, let me just quickly tell you what an advisory opinion is. An advisory opinion is not an opinion that is binding on the countries per se. Unlike, for example, the Kulbhushan Jadhav case verdict that was issued by the International Court of Justice, the advisory opinion by the ICJ will have a persuasive value. What that means is that it will lead to condemnation if the ICJ determines that the Kashmiris have been, if India has committed a genocide or India has been committing human rights violations. All this can give further momentum to Pakistan's lawfare against India. And when global condemnation starts building up for the momentum, then we see and we have seen in the past that has led to countries backing off from their initial positions and coming back to the negotiating table to resolve disputes.
So you think this is the way forward for Pakistan and India?
Well, that is one vertical of Pakistan's lawfare, Najma. The other vertical of Pakistan's lawfare could be Pakistan accepting the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. That's a lengthy debate. I won't get into it now, but that is one vertical. The other vertical is to send emissaries to different countries in the world. When I say emissaries, and I mean people who are well versed in the history of Kashmir, who are legal experts who can go and literally conduct presentations, who can be our floating think tanks, so to say, who can go and educate these countries about what's happening in India, and they should convince them to avoid looking at India solely from the economic prism and to look at India for what it is, a brutal fascist occupying force that has been subjugating the Kashmiris for the past 72 years.
Hassan, thank you so much for your time today. We will definitely be speaking to you on many of these legal issues in future dates.
It's my pleasure, Najma. Thank you very much.
Thank you.